Alright, quick update on Ape. Not a lot has changed in the macro term whatsoever. We're in a massive landslide at this moment in time. For the past month, we're really only seeing tons and tons of bearish volume stepping in. Now, we did get a little bit of hype, a little bit of euphoria stepping in the past week. I did make a video about why we talked about this. This was the other side trailer, and you know, it looked decent and it seemed like hype was kind of accumulating at that moment in time, but we did fail this breakout. The trend line is still valid. You can draw this from a few different ways, but you can also argue that we are making higher lows at this moment in time. So we're very 50-50. We're very much converging, and you know, I'd probably have to call this what would this be? This would basically just be a wedge, because you know the apex of this, if this was going to be an asymmetrical triangle, would be like months from now, considering how lackluster we are moving up and down. So I'd really be waiting for a move on Ape. I do think all altcoins are getting lined up for to be destroyed against Bitcoin, and I'm going to talk about ApeCoin against Bitcoin in just one moment in time, and I'm also going to talk about what I think Bitcoin is going to be doing, because this is going to correlate. If I tell you what I think is going to be going on with Bitcoin, this is going to have negative connotations on the altcoin market, and because of that, we're obviously going to see, you know, most altcoins landslide against Bitcoin, and specifically we're going to talk about this with Ape BTC. But finishing off with the Ape USD chart, really not a lot to talk about. Really nothing's changed. We're kind of just range bound right now, but we have been making lower highs. We have been getting constantly rejected from these EMA ribbons. What's also interesting is these EMA ribbons, they are going to keep on converging, and the tighter these get, the more explosive the move to the downside or the upside is going to be once we do finally have that move. So I think a big move is coming for Ape, as I think Ape is going to move down against Bitcoin, and as I think Bitcoin is going to move down, I do think that Ape is going to be going back to at least its lows, which would mean that Ape would be coming down another 35%. Unfortunately, I don't see any other way to chop it. I don't see us going down like super low, like below $2.40. That would be my absolute lowest last level from this 1.618 Fibonacci retracement level. But it's just very lackluster and boring right now. Neither the bulls or the bears have a huge amount of control on what is going on in the market. You can see this is very thin. I haven't seen the squeeze bomb this thin in a prolonged period of time now, but higher time frames you can very much see bears are in control. The trend is your friend until the end. Even if we do have a breakup in the short term, you could potentially see, you know, coming into that $9 to $10 region, specifically around the $10 region, we have a huge area of resistance coming in at $9.49. You've got the lows of basically the lows down here, and then you've got the lows here. So this is a big red box for potential rejection points, and then as always you can see coming in at $10, the moving average is going to be in place. So between $10.57 and $9.49, there is a plethora of resistance. So I'd be very careful about trading Ape at this moment in time. I don't like going on to the lower time frames. I really don't like looking at these altcoins on the 1 hourly time frame, because you know, the matter of the fact is we're probably going to see breakout, fake out. I mean, look at this, you know, breakout, fake out, breakout, fake out, breakout, fake out. This is ridiculous. So I won't be looking at this on the hourly. The 4 hour is very black and white in my opinion. Until we break above these EMA ribbons, there is nothing to get out of bed for. And the beauty of this is, most of the time when we do break above the EMAs, we go up a bit before we come back down. So this will give us the opportunity to retest these lows / retest the daily EMA ribbon, which is going to be coming down. It's going to be converging in the next couple of days round about to that 1040 region. So we're going to have a plethora of chances to break over some of these important levels, and if we do see Ape break basically $9, come up to round about that $10 vicinity, come back down to $9, and then bounce and break above this invalidation point, this is going to make these EMA ribbons have an explosive move. And at which moment in time the EMA ribbons on the 4 hour would have had a confirmed breakout and they'd be flipping bullish. And we've never seen these EMA ribbons do us anything but justice. You can see green 4-hourly EMA ribbons perfectly defined this whole uptrend. As soon as it flipped red, you can see, you know, broke down, retested them, moved down lower, and then what we had here was, this was not a breakout because we came, or it was, but it was a failed move because we didn't break above this invalidation point. So, you know, you would have taken that with a grain of salt looking at the 4-hourly EMAs anyway, so this wouldn't have been valid, you wouldn't have cared. But then you would have waited for this flip, retest, you know, breaking above that invalidation point, and even if you wanted to wait for something more macro like this, you could have got back in at, you know, like $15 before we went all the way up to $27 or $28. So the point of the matter is, these 4-hourly EMA ribbons, especially for these euphoric altcoins, the trend is definitely your friend. So I will be updating you once these break. I honestly think we're going to be range bound for a short period of time. Although Bitcoin is kind of moving back down in this falling wedge that it's in right now. So if we do break below 28,000, 28,200, we could see that big flush out to the downside on APE. So wrapping up the video, how is ApeCoin performing against Bitcoin? Well, you can actually see, I mean, since its mint all the way down here, it has done all right. And, you know, depending on where you want to look at this from, because on Binance, it listed a very, very different area, and it went up to a very, very different area than it did on Coinbase. But I think it makes sense to look at it from where this started trading, around that $7 region, after we had that push back to the downside of that initial huge wick on the listing. So looking at this, you know, we've clearly had this move up, and we've invalidated everything at this moment in time. So I do think ApeCoin is bearish against Bitcoin. There's really no way to draw this to make it look bullish. Once again, 4-hourly EMAs do this no wrong as always. 4-hourly EMAs perfectly define this uptrend. They flip bearish. You can see we moved below, retested, bang, done deal, flip bearish, and you know we're going to move back down lower. What happened once this flipped bullish? We moved above the EMAs, we back tested them, we pushed above the invalidation point. Perfect EMA flip. You can see this was confirmed right here on the 12th of April, and you know we flipped bullish on the 11th. So this gave you basically a day to confirm, and then after then we went on a big rally. You can see perfectly defined by the EMA ribbons. When did you know when to get out? Because, you know, like I said, you would have got in round about here. This flipped bearish, we broke below it, you back tested it, you got rejected and moved lower. This is when it fired bearish, so you know you would have waited for the failed move, and then you can see broke down. So depending on where you want to talk about it, you would have sold from round about this region here. So, you know, trading on these momentum swings, it definitely makes sense in my opinion. And while we are below these 4-hourly EMA ribbons, I still do have to expect that ApeCoin is bearish against Bitcoin. And now to wrap up the video, let's talk about what I think is specifically going to be happening with Bitcoin in the next week to the next month. I know that's a kind of high range to make a prediction in, but you know, these patterns are not going to play out to the teeth the way that they did in the previous cycle. So I would give this a little bit of extra time. We do have one extra trend line than we did back in these days. So, you know, I wouldn't say it's completely impossible to have a move back up to 34,000 before we do potentially move back lower, especially if next month, you know, we keep on kind of lollygagging around these accumulation ranges, or not these accumulation ranges, rather this kind of channel, these two basically horizontal rays but not quite horizontal rays. If we do move below, if the Fed in the next month decides that they're not going to be increasing the interest rates next month, then I imagine that would have a bullish short-term impact on the market, where we could potentially see a move back up to some higher price targets. For example, you know, Bitcoin could move up to 34, it could come up all the way up to 36 if we were going to get triple rejected from this trend line once again. So there's really a plethora of ranges where we can move down to, but in my opinion, the psychology of what's going on right here compared to right here seems very similar in my opinion. And I do think this breakdown from this triangle is, if it does get solidified, it's going to be nasty. So a weekly move below 29,000 would, in my opinion, undoubtedly move us down to at least 22,000. That is your 200-week moving average, and the reason I say at least is because there's no data traded. There's 3 weeks worth of data traded from the previous all-time high at 19 to 20,000 all the way up to the lows down here at 29,000. So like I said, a big move below 29,000 could mean that we could massively capitulate. Another 35%. Well, we predicted this was going to be a 35% drop. We've already moved down about 14% since this prediction, and I'm still predicting Bitcoin has another 25% to go down. I'm a huge Bitcoin bull. I love Bitcoin. I think it is the best cryptocurrency to hold for the long term. I think it's the safest option. I think it's the most decentralized, and I'm a huge fan of Bitcoin. But looking at this objectively, it does look like in the short term we have lower to break down. So if you loved Bitcoin up here at 69,000, there's no reason you shouldn't love it even more down here at 22,000. And that's my way of kind of looking at this thing. I think we are going to move down. I think Bitcoin is breaking down, and I do think this is going to carry the altcoin market down with it. So looking at the 8 BTC pair, it seems kind of evident to me, you know, especially while we're below these daily EMAs, especially while we're below these 4-hourly EMAs, I would just be expecting lower price targets for ApeCoin in general. So that's pretty much all I've got. It's very bearish on the higher time frames against the US dollar. It's very neutral in the lower time frames against the US dollar, and it's very bearish against Bitcoin in the higher time frames. And once again, we're kind of sitting in that neutral range in the kind of mid to lower time frames, but I would say it's more bearish specifically for the reason that we are below these EMA ribbons. So until we do break into or above these EMA ribbons, then, you know, everything looks pretty bearish to me. I think we have to move lower. It's kind of pointing to that already. It looks like Bitcoin wants to capitulate a little bit lower, potentially by the time I start uploading these videos. So that is all I've got. I hope you found value in this ApeCoin content. As always, cowboy out, not financial advice, and most importantly, peace.